The message from the Galactic Council arrived on a Tuesday morning. Admiral Jacob Turner stood in the command center of the space station, orbiting Earth. He watched as the alien face appeared on the large screen in front of him. The creature was tall, with skin that looked like crystal. Its name was difficult to pronounce, but everyone just called its species the Vardine. Lieutenant Karen Price stood behind Jacob, making sure everything was being recorded. This meeting was important. The whole human race needed to hear what the council had to say. The Vardine looked down at Jacob with cold eyes. It began to speak, and the computer translated its words into English. The voice was harsh and unfriendly. Humanity. Your time as observers in the Galactic Council has ended. We have reviewed your request to become full members. The Council has made a decision. Jacob crossed his arms and waited. He had a bad feeling about this. You may join the Council, but only if you meet our conditions, the Vardine continued. First, you must destroy all your military ships. We will protect your planet instead. Second, you must give us 60% of all the money your planet makes for the next 20 years. Third, you must abandon all your colonies on other planets and give us control of those worlds. Fourth, you must let us change your genetics to make you less aggressive. And fifth, you must stop all research into faster space travel. We will decide what technology you can have. The room went completely silent. Nobody moved. Nobody even breathed. Karen stopped typing on her computer. A young officer in the corner dropped something, and the sound echoed through the quiet room. Jacob felt anger building inside him, but he kept his face calm. His voice was steady when he spoke. And what happens if we say no? The Vardine smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. Then we will treat you as enemies. We will block all your trade routes. We will take your colonies, by force. We will surround your home planet and cut you off from the rest of the galaxy. We have done this before. Human. 17 other species tried to refuse us. None of them exist as space-traveling civilizations anymore. They learned what happens when you challenge the Council. How long do we have to think about this? Jacob asked quietly. 30 days. Then we expect your answer. Choose wisely, Admiral. If you cooperate, your species survives. If you fight us, you will lose everything. The screen went dark. The alien was gone. For a long moment, nobody said anything. Then Karen spoke up, her voice shaking with anger. They cannot be serious. These demands would destroy us. We would lose everything that makes us free. Jacob turned to face his crew. Every person in the room looked shocked and angry. Get me a connection to President Alan Harper right now. Top priority. And I want every file we have about the Council. I want to know everything about their military power, their economy, and how their government works. He paused and looked at each person. They want to see how humans react when we are threatened. Let us show them what happens when you try to bully humanity. We have never given up before. We are not going to start now. Within a few hours, the message reached Earth. Within days, every human colony and space station knew about the Council's demands. People everywhere were talking about it. Some were scared. Some were angry. But everyone wanted to know what their leaders would do. In the capital city on Earth, President Alan Harper called an emergency meeting. The most important people in human space gathered together. Military generals, scientists, economic experts, and intelligence officers all came to help make a decision. General Lisa Grant stood up to speak first. She was in charge of all human space forces. Mr. President, we have looked at what the Council can do. The news is not good. They have 40,000 big warships. We only have 372. Their weapons and shields are about 30 years more advanced than ours. They control almost all the trade routes in known space. They have economic power over almost every independent star system. Everyone in the room looked worried. But Lisa was not finished. However, we found some important weaknesses in how they operate, she continued. Martin Cole, the economic advisor, spoke next. The council runs on a system where member species pay them money. The council then gives back protection and trade benefits. But here is the problem. 23 of their 47 member species are losing money. The rich planets are keeping them alive with payments. President Harper leaned forward. What does that mean for us? It means they desperately need new sources of money, Martin explained. Earth's economy has been growing 12% every year. Our colonies have valuable resources. They do not want to destroy us. They want to take our wealth. That is why the demands are so extreme. They need our money to keep their own system from falling apart. Sharon Wells, who ran the intelligence department, showed some new information on the screens. We also learned something interesting about those 17 species the Vardine mentioned. We broke into the Council's old records 3 days ago. Mr. President, those species were not destroyed. They still exist, but they live as slaves now. They have no rights and no voice in the government. Alan's face grew dark with anger. So if we agree to their terms, we die slowly. If we refuse, they try to kill us quickly. Those are our only choices? Not exactly, sir, said a new voice. Dr. Henry Mitchell stood up from his seat at the end of the table. He was a small man with gray hair and bright, intelligent eyes. He ran the Department of Advanced Sciences. We have some advantages the Council does not know about. Explain, Alan ordered. Henry showed a technical drawing on the screen. Several officers gasped when they saw it. This is Project Lighthouse. For 15 years, we have been developing a new communication system using quantum technology. It lets us send messages instantly across any distance. The Council still uses old systems that have delays. If we use this, we can communicate faster than they can. That gives us a huge advantage. He changed the picture. This is Project Sidewinder. New stealth ships that can hide from any known scanner. We have 73 of them being built right now. And this is the most important one, Henry said, his voice dropping low. Project Horizon. We have successfully tested a new, faster-than-light drive. It does not need jump gates or established routes. We can go anywhere instantly without using their infrastructure. Everyone started talking at once. Lisa held up her hand for quiet. Henry, if this is real, why were we not told before? Because it was not ready yet, Henry replied. The Horizon drive works, but we only have it on 6 test ships. Making more would normally take years, but we do not need years. We only need 30 days. President Harper stood up. His mind was working fast, thinking through all the possibilities. What are you suggesting we do? Henry smiled, but it was not a pleasant smile. The Council thinks they have all the power. They think we are trapped. I am suggesting we change the rules completely. We do not fight their kind of war. We create a new kind of game. We have been studying their economy, Martin added, understanding what Henry meant. 60% of Council species depend on resources from frontier areas. Those areas can only be reached through Council jump gates. If we could bypass those gates and reach those resources ourselves, we become their competition. Lisa finished, her eyes going wide. We break their control over space travel. Sharon sat back with a hard smile. And if we can communicate instantly while they deal with message delays, we can move faster than them. They will not be able to coordinate their forces well enough. Alan looked around the table at his team. Outside this room, billions of humans were waiting to hear what would happen. Some were afraid. Some were angry. All of them were watching. We have 30 days. Alan Day. 7 of the countdown arrived. The shipyards floating in orbit around Mars were working without stopping. Bright welding lights flashed constantly as workers built new ships as fast as they could. Commander Paul Griffin stood at a window, watching the construction. The newest ship was taking shape before his eyes. How many more can we finish in time? He asked the chief engineer standing next to him. Chief Angela Ross looked at her electronic tablet. At the speed we are going now, we can complete 42 ships by day 30. But they will not all be ready for combat. The Horizon drive works fine, but we are still figuring out how to connect it to the weapon systems properly. 42 will have to be enough, Paul said. He had been working 18 hours a day since the Council gave them the ultimatum. He was not alone. Across human space, millions of people had volunteered to help. Factories that used to make civilian products now made military equipment. Scientists stopped their regular work to design new weapons. Even children in schools helped by organizing supply collections and running communication networks. On Earth, Sharon Wells sat in a dark room looking at computer screens. Her team had managed to break into the Council's private communication channels 3 days ago. What they found was very interesting. "Look at this," she said to her assistant, Craig Nelson. She pointed at a translated message on the screen. "This is from the Harathi ambassador to the Vardine leaders. Listen to what it says. The mineral taxes demanded by the core worlds have increased 47% in 5 cycles. Our people are starving, while our resources go to others. How long must we suffer before we are allowed to speak?" Craig whistled quietly. "They are not happy with the Council." "Nobody is happy," Sharon replied, bringing up more files. "The Torvan are angry about trade restrictions. The Kellics are protesting because they are being forced into military service. The Praxis just had a colony revolt that was destroyed by weapons fired from orbit. The Council is not a united government. It is like a bomb ready to explode. So we light the fuse," Craig said. "Exactly." Sharon started typing a message on her secure computer. "We reach out to the unhappy species. Not officially yet, but we let them know there might be another choice besides following the Council. We plant the seeds of rebellion. On the moon, Dr. Henry Mitchell barely slept anymore. The Lighthouse Communication Network was his obsession. The quantum devices were delicate and needed perfect adjustment to work across the distances between stars. "Dr. Mitchell," called out his lead researcher, Nicole Hayes, "we have successfully established stable connections between Earth, Mars, Titan, and the Alpha Centauri colony. No delay time at all. Perfect clarity." Henry allowed himself a small smile. "Excellent. Begin putting the relay satellites in position. I want coverage across every human star system by day 20. Sir, the Council will eventually detect the network." "Let them," Henry said. "By the time they realize what they are seeing, it will be too late." Day 15 came and went. General Lisa Grant stood on the bridge of the flagship Liberty, looking at combat simulations with her officers. The holographic display showed many possible battles, and most of them ended with human defeat. "We cannot win a direct fight," her tactical officer, Commander Ryan Cole, stated bluntly. "Even with our advantages, they outnumber us 100 to 1. Then we do not fight directly," Lisa replied. She changed the display to show a new pattern. "Look at how the Council spreads out their fleet. They keep 70% of their forces protecting the rich core worlds. The outer territories are defended by local militias with old ships. They are confident that nobody will challenge them out there. Because nobody can reach those systems without using their jump gates," Ryan said, understanding what she meant. "But we can now." We hit their supply lines," Lisa continued. "Fast attacks. We appear out of nowhere, disrupt their operations, and disappear before they can respond. We make them chase ghosts across the galaxy. And while they are doing that, we open new trade routes and make new alliances. We show the frontier worlds that there is an alternative to Council control." Day 22 arrived. President Alan Harper spoke to the entire human race in a broadcast that reached every settlement. His face was calm, but showed determination. "My fellow citizens," he began. "In 8 days, the Galactic Council expects our answer to their demands. They have asked us to give up our freedom, our prosperity, and our future. They believe we will submit because we are afraid of them. They believe we will accept slavery because we have no other choice. He paused, letting the words sink in. They are wrong. Humanity has never surrendered to tyranny in our entire history. We have always found a way forward, even when the situation seemed impossible. These next days will test us. But I have seen what we can do when we stand together. I have seen our engineers accomplish miracles. I have seen our soldiers prepare to defend what we have built. I have seen ordinary people make extraordinary sacrifices for the future of our species. Alan's voice grew stronger. So, to the Galactic Council, I say this. We are not your subjects. We are not your property. We are humanity, and we bow to no one. In 8 days, you will receive our answer, and the galaxy will never be the same. The broadcast ended. Across human space, people stood a little straighter. The fear began to change into something else. Determination. Defiance. Hope. Day 29 came. The final preparations were complete. The Horizon-class ships floated in formation around Earth. Their drives hummed with barely controlled power. The lighthouse network pulsed with instant communications. Economic assets had been moved to secure locations. Secret communication channels had been opened with a dozen unhappy council species. In the command room, Alan Harper's team gathered one last time before the deadline. Give me status reports. The president ordered. All ships ready to go, Lisa confirmed. Lighthouse network at full power and working perfectly, Henry reported. Economic transition 97% complete, Martin added. Intelligence assets in place and gathering information, Sharon concluded. Alan nodded slowly. Tomorrow, we give them our response. The council thinks they have trapped us. They think they know how this story ends. Let us teach them that humanity writes its own ending. The countdown had reached its final hours. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council waited. They were confident in their power. They were sure of their assumptions about how humans would react. They had no idea what was about to hit them. In homes across Earth and every human colony, families gathered around screens. Parents held their children. Friends sat together in quiet groups. Everyone knew that tomorrow would change everything. The council had given them a choice between slavery and destruction, but humanity had found a third option. And tomorrow, the entire galaxy would learn what happens when humans refuse to accept the choices others try to force on them. In the command center, Jacob Turner looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, council leaders were probably celebrating already. They thought they had won. They thought humanity would have to submit. They are about to learn something important about humans, Karen said quietly, standing next to him. What is that? Jacob asked. That we are at our most dangerous when we have nothing left to lose. She replied. They backed us into a corner. They gave us no good options. So, we made our own option. Jacob smiled grimly. In less than 24 hours, the council is going to regret ever sending that ultimatum. They wanted to show the galaxy what happens when you challenge them. Instead, they are about to show the galaxy what happens when you challenge humanity. The night passed slowly. Engineers made final adjustments to the new ships. Soldiers checked their equipment one last time. Scientists verified that all systems were working properly. Diplomats' Day 30 arrived like a countdown reaching 0. The Galactic Council's representative appeared on the communication screen once again. It was the same Vardeen who had delivered the ultimatum 30 days ago. This time, representatives from all 47 council member species were watching. They expected to see humanity give up. Admiral Jacob Turner stood in front of the screen, but he was not alone. Behind him stood representatives from every part of human government and military. The Vardeen's crystal-like face reflected the lights. It looked smug and satisfied. Humans, the time has come for your decision. Does your species accept the Council's generous terms of membership? Alan stepped forward. We have thought carefully about your proposal. We have talked with our people, our scientists, our military leaders, and our economic advisors. After complete consideration, We have reached a decision that everyone agrees on. The Vardine leaned forward slightly. And what is your answer? No. The simple word fell into the silence like a stone dropped into water. Shock spread through the council chamber, visible in the background. You refuse, the Vardine said, sounding like it could not believe what it heard. You understand what this means. Wonder. We understand perfectly, Alan replied. You threaten to block our trade routes. You threaten to take our colonies. You threaten to surround our homeworld. You said these threats were certain to happen if we refused. He paused, his face becoming hard. We are here to explain why your threats mean nothing. Alan made a gesture, and the screen split into two parts. On one side was the council chamber. On the other side appeared a map of space, glowing with marked routes and territories. Over the past 30 days, Alan continued, humanity has done something the council thought was impossible. We have developed faster-than-light travel that does not need jump gates or established routes or council infrastructure. We call it the Horizon Drive, and it makes your control of space travel worthless. Loud talking broke out in the council chamber. The Vardine's crystal skin seemed to grow darker. Impossible. Such technology would take hundreds of years to develop from your current level. You assumed we were at the level you thought we were, Alan said coldly. You assumed we would share all our research with you. You were wrong. Should I continue? Without waiting for an answer, he made another gesture. The space map changed, showing communication lines spreading everywhere, like a spider web. We have also put in place an instant communication network across all human territory and beyond. While your ships still deal with message delays, our forces can respond to threats in real time, across hundreds of light years. Your advantage in numbers means nothing if you cannot coordinate your forces well. The Vardine started to speak, but Alan cut it off. I am not finished. Over the past 30 days, we have also been running our own spy operations. We know about the Hurathi mineral shortage. We know about the Torven trade disputes. We know about the Kelix forced military service and the Praxis colony revolt. We know that 23 of your member species are losing money, kept alive only by the tribute you take from frontier worlds. Sharon Wells stepped forward, her voice sharp. We also know that those frontier worlds can only be reached through jump gates you control. Gates that charge extremely high fees. Gates that let you watch and control all trade. You have built an empire on controlling the roads between stars. But what happens? Alan asked quietly. When someone builds new roads? The screen changed again, showing video of Horizon-class ships appearing in deep space, coming out of faster-than-light travel without any jump gate nearby. These ships are already moving into position, Alan explained. We are creating new trade routes to the frontier worlds. We are offering an alternative to council control. Free passage, fair trade. No tribute payments. No restrictions. Just honest business between free peoples. The council chamber had gone completely silent. The Vardine's expression had changed from smugness to something close to panic. You are declaring economic war, it said flatly. No, Alan corrected. We are declaring economic competition. There is a difference. We are not attacking your ships. We are not invading your territory. We are simply offering the galaxy a choice. They can continue paying your fees, following your restrictions, accepting your demands, or they can trade with humanity, freely and fairly. General Lisa Grant spoke up, her voice carrying authority. As for your military threats, let me be clear. We have no desire for war, but if you attack us, you will find we are not as helpless as you thought. Our ships can appear anywhere, anytime, without warning. Can yours? Our communications are instant. Are yours? Our economy is independent and growing. Is yours? Martin Cole added. We have run the numbers. If even 20% of frontier trade moves away from council routes, your economic system collapses. The core worlds will not be able to support the tribute system. The species losing money will revolt, and your council will destroy itself from the inside. Alan raised his hand, and silence fell again. So here is humanity's counteroffer to the Galactic Council. Leave us alone. Let us follow our own path. Continue your operations as you wish, and we will continue ours. Compete with us fairly in the marketplace of goods and ideas. Or, he let the word hang in the air, or you can try to enforce your threats. Block our home system, and watch as our ships bypass your blockade easily. Take our colonies, and find them empty. Their people and resources moved beyond your reach. Surround Earth and discover that we were never dependent on your infrastructure to begin with. Attack us, and face a war you cannot win, because you will be fighting enemies who can strike from anywhere while you struggle to coordinate across message delays. The Vardines seem to shrink. The Council will not accept this defiance. We have crushed 17 species who did not have our technology, Alan interrupted. Who did not have our resources? Who did not have 30 days to prepare? And most importantly, who did not have the complete refusal to submit that defines humanity? You want to know what makes us dangerous? It is not our ships. It is not our technology. It is the fact that we would rather fight a losing war for 1,000 years than accept slavery for a single day. He stepped closer to the screen, his eyes locked on the Vardines. So take your ultimatum back to the Council. Tell them that humanity has given our answer. Tell them that a new power has entered the galactic stage. Tell them that the age of Council control is over. And tell them that if they are smart, they will adapt to this new reality peacefully. Because the alternative, Lisa added grimly, is that we show you exactly what happens when you threaten humans with extinction. We are a creative species. Imagine what we could do with horizon drives and a real reason to be hostile. Alan raised his hand in a final gesture. This message is being broadcast on every Council communication channel. Every species in the galaxy is hearing this conversation. They are learning that there is an alternative to submission. The choice is yours. Council. Evolution or extinction. Competition or collapse. Peace or war. Choose wisely. The transmission ended. The screen went dark. In the command center, complete silence lasted for 3 seconds. Then someone started clapping. Another person joined. Within moments, the entire room erupted in applause and cheers. Jacob turned to Alan with a grim smile. Well, Mr. President, we just did it. We just declared independence from the most powerful force in the galaxy. Alan nodded slowly, feeling the weight of what they had done. Now comes the hard part. We have to make good on every promise we just made. The ships, the trade routes, the economic competition, it all has to work. Or we just signed humanity's death sentence. It will work, Henry said confidently. I have seen what we can do. We went from receiving an ultimatum to creating revolutionary space travel in 30 days. Imag's 6 months had passed since the ultimatum. The galaxy looked completely different now. The Frontier Trade Alliance had grown from a desperate plan into a successful reality. 17 species had officially left the Galactic Council's economic system and signed trade agreements with humanity. The Harathi were the first to join, tired of watching their minerals go to the core worlds while their own people struggled. The Torven followed quickly, wanting the economic freedom that humanity offered. But the real shock came when the Kellics announced they were breaking away completely. The Kellics were one of the Council's strongest military powers. Their statement said they had fundamental disagreements with the Council's controlling nature and wanted to pursue self-determination in partnership with free peoples. The simple translation was clear. They were done being used. Admiral Jacob Turner stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, humanity's first purpose-built Horizon-class warship. The ship hummed with power. Its revolutionary drive let it patrol trade routes that the Council could not even reach efficiently. Sir, we are getting a distress call, Lieutenant Karen Price reported. It is a Harathi transport ship under attack by Council enforcement vessels. They are in the Epsilon sector. Jacob did not hesitate. Activate the Horizon Drive. Full combat readiness. Alert the fleet. Sir, that is deep inside Council-claimed territory. Not anymore, Jacob replied firmly. The Hurathi are our allies. We protect our allies. The Vanguard disappeared from normal space and appeared again seconds later, thousands of light-years away. The Hurathi transport was surrounded by 3 Council warships. Their weapons were charging up for a final attack. This is Admiral Turner of the Terran Defense Fleet to Council vessels. Stand down and leave immediately. The Council commander's response was predictable. This is Council space. You have no authority here. Wrong, Jacob said calmly. This is free space, and you are attacking our allies. You have 10 seconds to leave before we show you why that is a deadly mistake. The Council ships opened fire, but not on the Hurathi transport. They fired on the Vanguard instead. The energy blasts hit humanity's advanced shields and did nothing. Their choice, Jacob said. Return fire. Disable their weapons and engines. Do not destroy them if possible. The battle lasted 43 seconds. The Vanguard's precise weapons destroyed the Council ship's ability to fight without destroying the vessels themselves. The Hurathi transport escaped to safety, while the Council warships drifted in space, crippled but intact. Broadcast this on all channels, Jacob ordered. Let everyone see what happens when they attack our allies. Back on Earth, President Alan Harper met with ambassadors from the Frontier Trade Alliance. The conference room overlooked the rebuilt New York City. The skyline now had buildings in alien architectural styles, as other species set up embassies and trade offices. The Hurathi ambassador, a being that looked like a crystal mantis, spoke carefully. President Harper, the Council has issued formal economic sanctions against all species that trade with humanity. They are threatening military action. Empty threats. Alan replied confidently. They cannot coordinate fleet movements fast enough to counter horizon drives. They cannot enforce blockades when we can bypass them at will. And every aggressive move they make pushes more species into our alliance. The Torven representative, a floating gas-based creature in an environmental suit, pulsed with colors that meant agreement. Our economic studies show that Council tax revenue has dropped by 38% since the alliance formed. Several core worlds are facing money problems. Good, Alan said bluntly. Let them feel the pressure. Maybe they will reconsider their entire approach to running things. Sharon Wells entered the room with her data tablet. Mr. President, we have intercepted messages from inside the Council. There is a group forming, species that want to negotiate with us instead of fight. They are calling themselves the Reform Caucus. Alan raised an eyebrow. How many? 12 species so far, including 2 from the core worlds. They are proposing a complete change of the Council structure. Democratic representation, fair trade practices, an end to tribute systems. In other words, the Hurathi ambassador said, they want to become more like your alliance. Imitation is the highest form of flattery. Alan said thoughtfully. Set up secret communication channels with this Reform Caucus. Let us see if we can encourage them. Quote, across the galaxy on Mars, Dr. Henry Mitchell showed off humanity's latest creation. Scientists from 17 different species watched in amazement as the demonstration began. We call it the Gateway Network, Henry explained. Using technology from the Horizon Drive, we have created permanent transit points that any ship can use, no matter what their technology level is. No fees, no restrictions, free passage for everyone. A Kellic scientist raised a tentacle-like arm. But the economic implications? Who pays for maintenance? How do you prevent misuse? Henry smiled. We fund it through voluntary contributions. Species that use the network are invited to give resources or technology, but it is not required. The strong help the weak, not because they must, but because it benefits everyone. That is crazy, another scientist protested. No system can work without mandatory payments. The Council system needs them because it is built on taking advantage of others, Henry replied. We are proposing something different. A system built on cooperation and mutual benefit. Will some species use it without contributing? Probably. But we have calculated that voluntary contributions from wealthy species will more than cover costs. Especially since we are not taking 60% off the top for administration, like the Council does. The demonstration continued, showing how the Gateway Network could change travel for species without advanced, faster-than-light technology. It was humanity offering the galaxy a gift, free infrastructure that would make things fair for everyone. 3 months later, the Galactic Council faced its biggest crisis. 23 species had now left the traditional structure. The Reform Caucus had grown to 18 members, and they had submitted a formal proposal for council reorganization. The core worlds, watching their wealth and power crumble, faced a choice: adapt or face total collapse. The Vardeen, who had delivered the original ultimatum to humanity, requested a private meeting with President Harper. Alan agreed, curious to see what the once arrogant alien would say now. The Vardeen appeared on the screen, and Alan noticed immediately that the being looked diminished somehow. Its crystal skin had lost its shine. President Harper, it began, and there was no contempt in its voice now. I have been given permission by a group of council species to discuss terms. Terms? Alan asked mildly. The council acknowledges that the previous demands made upon humanity were excessive. We wish to negotiate a new framework for relations between our peoples. Alan leaned back in his chair. You mean you are losing the economic war and want to make peace before your entire system falls apart? The Vardeen's silence was answer enough. Here are my terms, Alan said firmly. The council reorganizes along democratic lines. Every species gets an equal vote, not weighted by economic power. The tribute system ends. Trade routes become free and open. Military forces become a true collective defense, not an enforcement tool for the wealthy. And most importantly, the Council formally recognizes the independence of all species, including those who choose not to join. That would mean the end of the Council as it currently exists, the Vardeen protested. Yes, Alan agreed. It would mean the end of an empire based on exploitation and the beginning of an actual cooperative alliance. Is that not what the Council was supposed to be originally? Before the core worlds corrupted it? The Vardeen was silent for a long moment. You have won. In 9 months, you have done what 17 species over 1,000 years could not. You have broken the Council's power structure. We did not break it, Alan corrected. We offered an alternative. The Council broke itself by holding on to an outdated system. We just made it happen faster. Read it. We just made it happen. Faster. Will you join? The Vardeen asked. If we reform as you suggest, will humanity become part of the new council? Alan thought about the question carefully. We will join as equal partners, not subjects. We will contribute to collective defense and participate in democratic decision-making, but we will never submit to tribute demands or give up our independence. Those terms are not negotiable. And if some species refuse the reforms? If they try to keep the old system? See well, then they will find themselves increasingly isolated and irrelevant, Alan said simply. The galaxy is changing. They can change with it or be left behind. That is not a threat. It is just reality. The Vardeen nodded slowly. I will convey your terms to the Council. I think most will find them acceptable, given the alternative. One more thing, Alan added. Those 17 species the Council conquered over the past 1,000 years. The ones you turned into a permanent, lower class. They get full restoration of rights and representation in the new system. This is not negotiable. Enforced. To the point. Agreed, the Vardeen said quietly. 6 months after the Vardeen's private meeting with President Alan Harper, the Galactic Council formally announced its dissolution. The declaration came on a Wednesday morning, transmitted across every communication channel in known space. What had ruled the galaxy for over 1,000 years was ending. In its place rose the Galactic Federation. The new charter was based on principles that humanity had championed: democratic representation for all member species, free trade without tribute payments, collective defense instead of forced military service, mutual respect for every species' right to govern themselves. The transition was not smooth. 12 of the old core worlds refused to accept the changes at first. They tried to maintain the old system, claiming they still had authority. But within 3 months, even the most stubborn holdouts realized the truth. The galaxy had moved on without them. Trade routes they once controlled were now bypassed by the Gateway Network. Species that once paid them tribute were now prosperous trading partners with the Free Worlds Alliance. One by one, they accepted the new reality. Some did it gracefully. Others fought until the very end, before finally admitting defeat. Admiral Jacob Turner stood on the observation deck of Gateway Station, which orbited Earth. The station served as the central hub of the new transit network. Ships from over 100 different species came and went in a constant flow of peaceful commerce. He watched a Harathi cargo vessel dock next to a Torven passenger ship, with a human transport waiting its turn. "It is hard to believe this is real sometimes," Lieutenant Karen Price said, standing beside him. "A year ago, we were facing extinction. Now, we are at the center of galactic transformation." Jacob nodded. The Council made a critical mistake. They thought showing strength meant making threats. They did not understand that real strength comes from building things together, not tearing others down. Karen looked at the ships moving through the station. "Do you think it will last? The Federation, I mean. Can this many different species really work together peacefully?" "It will have problems," Jacob admitted. "Different species will disagree. There will be conflicts and challenges. But the difference is that now everyone has a voice. Everyone has a vote. Nobody is being forced into submission. That makes all the difference." On Earth, in the newly constructed Federation Hall, President Alan Harper attended the first official session of the Galactic Senate. Representatives from 83 species filled the chamber. Some sat in chairs, others floated in containment fields. A few existed as energy patterns held in special matrices, but all of them had equal votes. The Harathi representative stood to speak first. Its crystal body reflected the lights as it addressed the assembly. "We gather today to mark a new beginning. For too long, the strong dominated the weak. For too long, wealth determined rights. For too long, freedom was a privilege instead of a guarantee. Today, we declare that those days are over. Today, we stand together as equals." The chamber erupted in applause, each species showing approval in their own way. The Torven pulsed with bright colors. The Kellics clicked their mandibles rhythmically. The humans clapped their hands. It was chaos, but it was beautiful chaos. After the session ended, Alan met privately with representatives from the old Council core worlds. They looked diminished now, their previous arrogance replaced with careful politeness. "President Harper," one of them began, "we wish to formally apologize for the ultimatum delivered to your species a year ago. It was wrong. We see that now." Alan studied them for a moment before responding. "I appreciate the apology. But understand this. Humanity does not forget easily. We will work with you, in good faith, going forward. We will be fair partners in this new federation. But if you ever try to return to the old ways, if you ever try to dominate others through threats and exploitation, you will find that the rest of the galaxy will not allow it. The balance of power has changed permanently." "We understand," the representative said quietly, "and we accept it." Across the galaxy, the changes rippled outward. The 17 species that had been enslaved by the old Council were freed and given full citizenship in the Federation. Their joy was visible and infectious. Generations had lived under oppression. Now, they were free. On Mars, Dr. Henry Mitchell continued to innovate. The Gateway Network was just the beginning. His team was working on new technologies to share with all Federation species: medical advances, agricultural improvements, educational systems, energy production methods. Everything that could improve life for everyone. The Council hoarded technology, Henry explained to a group of visiting scientists from various species. They kept the best inventions for themselves and parceled out older technology to others based on what they paid. We are taking the opposite approach. We share everything freely. Yes, some species will advance faster than others. Yes, some will contribute more than others. But in the long run, everyone benefits when knowledge is free. A praxis scientist raised a concern. But what about dangerous technologies? Weapons? What prevents someone from using shared knowledge to harm others? Nothing prevents it completely, Henry admitted. But here is what we have learned. Species that feel threatened tend to act aggressively. Species that feel secure tend to act peacefully. By sharing defensive technologies freely, we make everyone feel more secure. By building economic prosperity for all, we reduce the reasons for conflict. By giving everyone a political voice, we create ways to resolve disputes without violence. And if someone still chooses violence? The scientist asked. General Lisa Grant, who was also attending the presentation, answered that question. Then the entire Federation responds together, not as oppressors enforcing tribute payments, but as free peoples defending their shared values. The difference is that now military action would be a last resort, supported by democratic consensus, not the first choice of a few powerful worlds. The months continued to pass. The Free Worlds Alliance officially merged with the Galactic Federation, though humans maintained their independent defense forces and continued to innovate. Other species began adopting Horizon Drive technology, which humanity shared freely. The galaxy was becoming more connected than ever before, but in healthy ways, rather than through forced dependence. Sharon Wells ran the new Intelligence Cooperation Agency, which coordinated information sharing between Federation species. Unlike the old Council's spy network, which existed to maintain control, the new agency focused on identifying threats to peace and prosperity before they could grow. We just prevented 3 potential conflicts this month, she reported to Alan during a security briefing. A border dispute between the Kellics and the Zareth was resolved through mediation. A trade disagreement between the Harathi and the Praxis was settled through arbitration. And we identified a pirate group operating in the outer territories before they could become a major problem. How did we prevent these issues? Alan asked. Information and communication, Sharon replied. The old council kept species isolated and suspicious of each other. We encouraged dialogue. When the Kellics and Zareth started having border tensions, we immediately set up communication channels and brought in neutral mediators. The issue was resolved in 2 weeks. Under the old system, it would have festered for years before exploding into conflict. Alan nodded approvingly. Keep it up. Our greatest strength is not our military power or our technology. It is our ability to talk to each other and find solutions together. We consent in 80. Make signed. Remember. Keep it up. 1 year after the Federation's founding, a ceremony was held on Earth. Representatives from every member species gathered to dedicate a monument. The structure was built from materials donated by all 83 species. It showed beings from different worlds standing together, supporting each other. The inscription read simply, United in freedom, strong in diversity, committed to peace. Admiral Jacob Turner gave a speech at the dedication. He looked out at the assembled representatives and spoke from his heart. A year ago, humanity faced a choice. Submit to domination or face destruction. We chose a third path. We chose to stand up for our right to be free. But we did not stop there. We offered that same freedom to everyone else. We built roads where there were walls. We created partnerships where there was exploitation. We replaced fear with hope. He paused, looking at the monument. This structure represents what we have built together. Not one species dominating the others. Not the strong crushing the weak. but all of us, supporting each other, making each other stronger. This is what the galaxy can be when we choose cooperation over control. The applause that followed came from 83 different species, each expressing approval in their own unique way. Later that evening, Alan Harper stood alone in his office, looking out at the stars. The weight of leadership still pressed on his shoulders, but it was different now. Less lonely. He was not leading humanity alone anymore. He was part of something bigger. Karen entered quietly. Mr. President, the reports are in. Federation trade has increased 200% compared to the old council system. Scientific collaboration has produced 17 major breakthroughs in the past 6 months. Military conflicts are down 87%, and citizen satisfaction surveys show approval ratings at levels never seen under the old council. Alan smiled. Sometimes, I still cannot believe we pulled this off. The council was so powerful. They seemed unstoppable. They were unstoppable, Karen said, until they met a species stubborn enough to refuse to stop. That was their mistake. They thought they were dealing with a species like all the others they had conquered. They did not realize that humans have this fundamental inability to accept defeat. We were just lucky that our stubbornness happened to match up with some new technology and good timing, Alan said modestly. Karen shook her head. It was not luck, sir. It was character. When faced with impossible odds, some species give up. Others fight briefly and then surrender. Humans just keep adapting and innovating and refusing to quit until they find a way through. That is what changed the galaxy. Not the Horizon Drive or the Lighthouse Network. Those were just tools. It was the human refusal to accept that some problems cannot be solved. Alan was quiet for a moment, then nodded. Maybe you are right. And maybe that is the real lesson here. The council thought power came from control and domination. They thought showing strength meant making others weak. But real strength comes from lifting others up. Real power comes from working together. Real security comes from mutual prosperity. And now the whole galaxy knows it, Karen said. Because humanity proved it. The stars shone outside the window. Ships moved between them freely now. No long 5 years had passed since the Galactic Federation replaced the old council. The changes that seemed revolutionary at first had become normal. Young people, growing up now, barely remembered a time when the galaxy was different. To them, free trade routes and democratic representation were just how things were. But Admiral Jacob Turner remembered. He stood in the Memorial Hall on Earth, looking at exhibits that documented the transformation. Holographic displays showed the original ultimatum from the Vardine. Video recordings captured the moment President Alan Harper rejected the council's demands. Interactive displays let visitors experience what it felt like to be in the command center during those crucial 30 days. A group of young students walked through the hall with their teacher. The teacher was Kelix, and the students included humans, Hurathi, Torven, and several other species. They stopped in front of a display showing the first Horizon-class ship. Can anyone tell me why this ship was so important? The teacher asked. A human student raised her hand. Because it could travel without using the council's jump gates. That broke their control over space travel. I'm my controller. President. ASO. Rident. AC. Widen today. A purse. Correct, the teacher said. But why did that matter so much? The council had faster ships. They had more ships. Why was this one technological advantage so important? A Hurathi student answered. Because it meant humans had freedom. They could go anywhere without asking permission. And they shared that freedom with everyone else. The teacher's mandibles clicked in approval. Exactly. The Horizon Drive itself was just a tool. What made it revolutionary was how humanity chose to use it. They could have kept it secret. They could have used it to build their own empire. Instead, they shared it and invited others to join them in freedom. Jacob smiled as he listened to the lesson. The teacher was right. That choice to share rather than hoard had made all the difference. He walked to another part of the hall where President Alan Harper stood looking at a particular exhibit. Alan had retired from the presidency 2 years ago, but he still visited the memorial hall regularly. Still finding it hard to believe? Jacob asked, joining him. Alan chuckled. Every time I come here, we were just trying to survive. You know, we were not trying to change the galaxy. We just refused to give up our freedom. And in refusing to give up our freedom, we showed everyone else they did not have to give up theirs either, Jacob said. That was the real revolution. The exhibit they were looking at showed messages from the 17 species that had been enslaved under the old council. Gratitude filled every word. Parents thanked humanity for giving their children a future. Elders thanked them for letting them die free instead of in chains. Leaders thanked them for showing that change was possible. Do you ever regret it? Alan asked quietly. Taking that risk? We could have accepted the council's terms. Humanity would have survived, even if we were not free. And you think with Ride, Despinstered, with King, we could, in all, with Kang, humanity, anything, we one of the rest. Jacob shook his head firmly. No. Some things are worth more than survival. Freedom is one of them. Besides, we would not have really survived. We would have slowly faded away, becoming servants to others. A communication alert sounded on Jacob's device. He checked it and smiled. The new gateway station in the Andromeda sector is now operational. That gives us coverage across the entire local galactic cluster. Any ship from any species can now travel freely between galaxies. Alan whistled softly. When I was young, we were still struggling to reach Mars. Now, we have free highways between galaxies. The pace of change is staggering. That is what happens when you remove artificial limits, Jacob said. The Council kept technology restricted to maintain their power. Now that knowledge flows freely, innovation is exploding. Every species contributes something unique. Together, we are advancing faster than any single species ever could alone. They walked outside into the garden that surrounded the memorial hall. The garden featured plants from 200 different worlds, all growing together in engineered harmony. It was a living symbol of what the Federation represented. Sharon Wells found them there. She still ran the Intelligence Cooperation Agency, though her role had evolved significantly. Alan, Jacob, I thought you would want to know. The last of the old council holdouts just formally joined the Federation. Which one? Alan asked. The Zereth. They have been resisting for 5 years, trying to maintain independence and the old ways, but their economy could not compete. Their young people were leaving to join Federation worlds where opportunities were better. They finally accepted reality. How did they phrase their request to join? Jacob asked, curious. Sharon pulled up the message on her tablet. They said, and I quote, "We recognize that the galaxy has evolved beyond the old systems. We ask to join the Federation as equal partners, contributing what we can and learning from others. We acknowledge that isolation leads to stagnation, while cooperation leads to growth." Alan nodded approvingly. That is a good start. Make sure they understand the terms clearly. No tribute payments. No second-class species. Everyone has an equal vote. If they can accept that, welcome them in. Already done, Sharon said. They are sending their first ambassador next week. In the Mars Research Complex, Dr. Henry Mitchell had become something of a legend. At 73 years old, he still worked every day, though he had turned over most administrative duties to younger scientists. His latest project was revolutionary even by post-council standards. We call it the Consciousness Network, he explained to a gathering of Federation scientists. It allows direct mind-to-mind communication between different species. Not just words, but concepts, emotions, understanding. A skeptical praxis scientist interrupted. But different species think in fundamentally different ways. How can you bridge that gap? Henry smiled. You are right that we think differently. That is precisely why this is so valuable. Instead of losing meaning in translation, the network lets each participant experience how others think. Imagine understanding not just what someone says, but how they arrived at that thought. What cultural context shapes their perspective? What emotions drive their decisions? He activated a demonstration. 2 volunteers, 1 human and 1 Torven, put on neural interface devices. Within moments, they were communicating in ways that left the observers stunned. The human experienced the Torven's multi-spectral perception of reality. The Torven experienced the human's linear time-based reasoning. When they removed the devices, both were visibly moved. I never truly understood how you perceive the world, the human volunteer said. It is beautiful and completely different from anything I imagined, and I never grasped how you organize memory and causality, the Torven replied. It explains so much about human behavior that seemed illogical before. Henry addressed the scientists again. This is the next evolution of the Federation. We have achieved political unity and economic cooperation. Now we can achieve genuine understanding. When you truly comprehend how another thinks and feels, prejudice becomes almost impossible. The project sparked debate across the Federation. Some worried about privacy, others feared it could be misused. But controlled trials showed remarkable results. Conflicts that had simmered for years were resolved in hours when both parties used the consciousness network. Understanding replaced suspicion. General Lisa Grant had retired from active military service and now taught at the Federation Military Academy. The academy was unlike any military institution that had existed under the old council. Yes, it taught combat and strategy. But it also taught conflict resolution, cultural sensitivity, and cooperative security. The purpose of the Federation military is to prevent war, not wage it, she told a class of cadets from 30 different species. Every weapon we carry represents a failure to find a peaceful solution. Your job is to make sure those failures happen as rarely as possible. A human cadet raised his hand. But General, what if peaceful solutions do not work? What if someone refuses to negotiate? Lisa nodded. Good question. Yes. Sometimes force is necessary. But it should always be a last resort, used only after every alternative has been exhausted, and when force is required, it should be proportional, precise, and aimed at restoring peace, not achieving domination. She pulled up a case study on the display. 3 years ago, a rogue group tried to restart the old council system. They seized control of a mining colony and demanded tribute from passing ships. We could have destroyed them easily. Instead, we blockaded the system, cut off their resources, and negotiated. It took 2 months, but they eventually surrendered without a single death. Every one of them is now a productive Federation citizen. A Kellex cadet clicked a question. But that took time and resources. Would destruction not have been more efficient? Efficient at what? Lisa challenged. Efficient at killing? Yes. Efficient at building lasting peace? No. Every person we kill is someone who might have contributed something valuable to the Federation. Every conflict we resolve peacefully is a lesson that reinforces the value of cooperation over violence. Back on Earth, President Alan Harper's successor, President Jennifer Cole, addressed the Federation Senate. The chamber was even more crowded now, with representatives from 147 member species. 5 years ago, we began an experiment, Jennifer said. We asked whether different species could truly govern themselves together, without one dominating the others. Some said it was impossible. Some said democracy could not work on a galactic scale. Some said conflict was inevitable. She paused, looking around the chamber. They were wrong. Yes, we have had disagreements. Yes, we have faced challenges. But we have resolved every dispute through dialogue and compromise. We have grown stronger through our diversity, not weaker. And we have proven that freedom and cooperation are not opposing values. They reinforce each other. A Harathi senator stood to speak. President Cole, there are still those who question the Federation. They say we are naive. They say someone will eventually try to seize power. How do we answer them? Jennifer smiled. We answer them by continuing to prove them wrong. Every day that passes without tyranny is evidence against their claims. Every dispute we resolve peacefully is proof that cooperation works. Every species that voluntarily joins us is a vote of confidence in our system. But we must remain vigilant, she continued. Freedom is not something you achieve once and then forget about. It requires constant attention and effort. The moment we become complacent is the moment we risk losing what we have built. In a quiet corner of the Federation, on a small agricultural world called Haven, something remarkable was happening. Species that had been enemies under the old council were now neighbors, Hurathi and Praxis, whose worlds had been at war for centuries, now farmed adjacent land. Their children played together, learning each other's languages and customs. An elderly Hurathi farmer named Keleth sat with his Praxis neighbor Zaran, watching the sunset. The two had become unlikely friends over the past 3 years. When I was young, Keleth said, I was taught that your people were evil, dangerous, to be feared and hated. My whole world was shaped by that belief. Zaran's energy field pulsed with sad colors. And I was taught the same about your people. We fought 3 wars in my lifetime before the Federation formed. I lost family members to those conflicts. What changed? Keleth asked. Everything, Zaran replied. The Council kept us fighting because conflict served their purposes. We were easier to control when we were afraid of each other. The Federation gave us a choice. We could continue hating, or we could try understanding. Most of us chose understanding. Keleth gestured at their children playing together nearby. His daughter was teaching Zaran's son how to climb trees, while Zaran's son was showing her daughter how to sense energy fields. They will grow up without that hatred. They will never understand why we fought. Good, Zaran said firmly. Let that knowledge die with our generation. Let them build something better. All Bon, signed 14 form, are not we can subscribe comment. As the sun set on Haven, similar scenes played out across the Federation. Old enemies becoming friends. Different species learning to appreciate their differences instead of fearing them. Children growing up in a galaxy where peace was normal and cooperation was expected. Admiral Jacob Turner returned to the Gateway Station orbiting Earth. He stood on the observation deck where he had stood so many times before, watching ships come and go. But now, he was not alone. Karen Price stood with him, as did Alan Harper, Sharon Wells, Henry Mitchell, and Lisa Grant. The core team that had faced the Council's ultimatum 5 years ago. Do you think this will last? Karen asked. Really last? I mean, not just for our lifetimes, but for generations? Henry spoke up first. If we keep sharing knowledge freely, yes. Innovation and prosperity reduce conflict. As long as everyone benefits from cooperation, they will choose cooperation. If we maintain democratic institutions, Sharon added, power must remain distributed. The moment it concentrates in too few hands, we risk returning to the old ways. If we remember why we fought for this, Lisa said, freedom is not just a political system. It is a value that must be taught and defended in every generation. Alan looked at each of them. We did something unprecedented. We took a threat meant to destroy us and turned it into an opportunity to liberate everyone. But what made it work was not just our technology or strategy. It was our refusal to see others' freedom as a threat to our own. We understood that lifting others up made us stronger, not weaker. Jacob nodded. The council made a fatal mistake. They thought they were dealing with just another species to be conquered. They did not understand that humans have this peculiar trait. When you back us into a corner and give us no good options, we do not just survive. We innovate. We adapt. We find a third option nobody saw coming, and we share that option with everyone else. Is that a human trait? Karen asked. Or is it something all species have if given the chance? Good question, Henry said thoughtfully. Maybe what is special about humans is not that we have unique abilities, but that we were lucky enough to develop them without being conquered first. And now that we have shared those abilities, other species are showing the same creativity and resilience. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the galaxy they had helped transform. Ships moved freely between stars. Messages traveled instantly across impossible distances. Species that had never met before traded goods and ideas. Somewhere in the Federation, a young student was learning about the ultimatum that changed everything. Somewhere else, a scientist was making a breakthrough that would benefit everyone. Somewhere, old enemies were becoming friends. Somewhere, a child was growing up free. The Galactic Council had tried to extort humanity. They had demanded submission with threats of extinction. They had been so confident in their power that they never considered they might face resistance. They learned, too late, what happens when you threaten a species that values freedom above survival. You do not just face resistance, you face transformation. Because humans do not just fight for themselves, they fight for everyone. And they do not stop until the fight is won. 5 years ago, the galaxy was ruled by fear and exploitation. Today, it was united in freedom and cooperation. The shockwave humanity triggered had reshaped everything, and it was only the beginning. Gare constrained by council-controlled jump gates. Messages flew across space instantly through the Lighthouse network. Species that had never met before were now trading partners and friends. The Galactic Council had tried to extort humanity with an ultimatum. They had demanded submission. They had threatened destruction. In response, humanity had triggered a shockwave that transformed the entire galaxy. Not through military conquest, not through economic domination, but through the simple, stubborn refusal to accept that freedom is something others can grant or take away. Freedom is something you claim for yourself and then extend to everyone else. And once that idea takes root, nothing can stop it from spreading. The galaxy would never be the same again. And that was exactly how it should be. The transmission ended. Alan sat alone in his office, feeling the weight of what humanity had accomplished. In less than a year, they had gone from facing destruction to reshaping the political structure of the galaxy. General Lisa Grant found him there an hour later. Mr. President, we are receiving requests from 67 species asking to join the Frontier Trade Alliance. The Gateway Network is being called the most important infrastructure development in galactic history, and the Kellics want to create a joint military academy with Earth to train the next generation of defense forces. Alan smiled tiredly. I suppose we should start thinking bigger. We are not just defending humanity anymore. We are building something new. Al, what should we call it? Lisa asked. Alan thought for a moment, then smiled. How about the Free Worlds Alliance? Simple, direct, and it says exactly what we stand for. The Free Worlds Alliance, Lisa repeated. I like it. The galaxy was changing. And humanity stood at the center of that change. In What We Can Do with 30 Years, Sharon was already at her computer, watching the flood of messages spreading across the galaxy. Mr. President, we are receiving secret messages from the Harathi, the Torvan, and at least 6 other council species. They want to talk, privately. Alan smiled. Set up the meetings. Let us show them what partnership with humanity looks like. As the team went to their various jobs, Alan stood alone for a moment, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, The Galactic Council was realizing that the galaxy had just changed forever. Humanity had not just refused to be conquered. They had declared themselves competitors, equals, and possibly the trigger for a change that would reshape the entire political structure of known space. The Council had tried to force humanity to submit with threats, and in response, humanity had created a shockwave that would echo across the stars for generations to come. On Council worlds across the galaxy, leaders watched the transmission in stunned silence. Some were angry, some were afraid, some were already calculating what this meant for their own positions. But all of them understood one thing clearly. The galaxy had just changed. The Council's absolute power was no longer absolute. A new player had entered the game, and they had entered it not by asking permission, but by rewriting the rules entirely. And in the frontier territories, on worlds that had suffered under Council control for generations, people watched the human broadcast and felt something they had not felt in a very long time. Hope prepared their messages to the unhappy Council species, and as the sun rose on day 30, humanity stood ready to reject the ultimatum, ready to fight if necessary, ready to change the galaxy forever. The Council had tried to force humanity into submission with threats and demands. They had assumed that fear would make humans obedient. They had forgotten to ask one important question. What happens when you threaten a species that has spent its entire history refusing to quit no matter how bad things get? The answer was about to arrive, and it would shake the foundations of the Galactic Council to their core. President Alan Harper walked into the communications room. The screens showed that the Council was waiting for the transmission. Millions of aliens across dozens of worlds were watching, expecting to see humanity surrender. Alan looked at his team one last time. "Are we ready?" "Ready, sir," they all replied. "Then let us show them what humanity is really made of," Alan said. "Open the channel." The transmission began, and with it, everything changed. Aid quietly. "The Council expects us to beg. They expect us to try to negotiate for better terms. Instead, we are going to use every single hour to prepare for something they will never see coming. General Grant, get our fleet ready, but keep them in defensive positions. Martin, start moving our economic assets where the Council cannot reach them. Sharon, I want to know everything about their internal politics. Which species are unhappy? Which ones might rebel? And Henry, he turned to the scientist. You have 30 days to give me a miracle. Can you do it? Henry nodded slowly. We will need to work day and night. We will need to take some risks with technology that has not been fully tested. But yes, sir, we can do it. Alan Harper took a deep breath. In 30 days, humanity would give the Galactic Council an answer. But it would not be the answer the Council expected. Everyone, listen carefully, he said firmly. The Council wants to see how we respond to threats. Let us show them that humans do not negotiate with bullies. We prepare, we adapt, and we make them wish they had never tried to intimidate us. The meeting ended. Across all of human space, preparations began. The countdown had started.